Well, now for more on Brazil's upcoming vote and the economic expectations, I'm joined in studio by Raquel Krahenbuhl, Washington correspondent for GloboNews TV. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, for people who aren't familiar, just how high are the stakes in this election?
Well, this election is very unpredictable. It's the most unpredictable since the redemocratization of Brazil in '85. And this is what it is at stake right now. It's to give you a scenario in Brazil. Brazilians are very resentful, and there is a huge frustration in Brazil because of the corruption scandal that just led to jail Lula da Silva, as your correspondent was saying, and also the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff from the same party. So there is this establishment angry in Brazil right now that is helping some other candidates like Bolsonaro, which is very controversial from the beginning when he started to be a congressman in the beginning of the 90s. There is also this deep recession in Brazil that Brazil is just started coming out, but it's still 13 million people that don't have a job in Brazil. We also have 73 million in poverty. So corruption and economic situation is two big issues in Brazil. And besides that, we also have violence. Brazil, the homicides in Brazil in the last year grew 10%. And we have close to 65,000 people were killed. So we have this sentiment in Brazilians are very resentful and angry. And Bolsonaro has an angry message, so a lot of people is attracted to that.
And we're certainly seeing that as a theme in different parts of the world. So as we look at the top concerns, the economic concerns for everyday Brazilians versus what the markets are looking for in a candidate, how does that compare?
Well, the markets want stability, and they want a candidate that would be able to improve, to implement the very needed, as the markets say, economic reforms, such as pension reform. Pensions being a big problem in Brazil is helping to raise the debt in Brazil, the national debt. So they want a candidate that would help to improve those. Right now, what the market is seeing, because of this uncertainty in the election market, stock markets in Brazil are going down. The dollar is going up compared to the real. But last week, with the perspective that Bolsonaro could win the election, even in the first round, the state-owned stocks started to go up, the dollar started to go down. So there is this sentiment that part of the market's more, it's accepting more Bolsonaro, but at the same time, SP 500, for example, thinks Bolsonaro is more unpredictable. There is this fear with his message, this controversial message and very populist message also in the market. But as you saw in the story, he has an economic advisor who is more market-friendly. He is more liberal, and he's being reformist. So, as I say, the reforms are going to be key. But another thing is important to say, both of the candidates, Haddad and Bolsonaro, the front runners, they are very unpopular and very weak in Congress, and it's going to be very hard to implement those reforms.
So speaking of popularity, you mentioned that all this is taking place against the backdrop of Operation Car Wash, this huge corruption probe, the biggest actually in the world, and that's really severely damaged public trust. Is there any party when it comes to regaining public trust that really has the edge?
Well, yeah, Car Wash was, right now, the confidence in the political institutions and political parties in Brazil is the lowest since Brazil went back to democracy, returned to democracy in 85, I'm sorry. But, and this sentiment is really key in this election. You see a very fear that the Workers' Party, there was Lula's, who is right now in jail, and Dilma Rousseff, who is impeached, this former president's party, that they will return to power. And this is why a lot of people that are also voting for Bolsonaro, they have this fear with violence, and they want to change the status quo. But at the same time, there is this sentiment, the fear that the party, Workers' Party, is going to return to power. And this is being key, and you see a lot of people in Brazil voting to protest the other side. They are not voting because they like the candidate, but they are voting because they don't want the other side to win.
So just quickly, are you expecting any surprises in this first round, and are there any regional implications for the outcome of this election?
Yes, I would say that the first challenge after this election would be to unify the country and bring back the Brazil economy to grow in a fast pace. Right now, the economy in Brazil is growing. The second quarter was just 0.2% growth. So it will be a big challenge first of all, to unify the countries. And the other candidates that you mentioned, there are a lot of other candidates putting themselves out there, and they are trying, they were just yesterday at the last debate, trying to present themselves as the middle, as the center, other than they have other Brazilians. They are trying to show Brazilians have more option and not the extremes, the far right or the left that came from the Workers' Party. So they are trying to pose themselves as the candidates that could unify the country, and they say the country right now really need to come together to be able to implement reforms, grow the economy, and come out of this crisis that is being going on in Brazil for years now, for 4 years.
Yes, certainly can be difficult once you have such a divisive election. Yeah. Thank you so much for your insights. Our thanks to Raquel Krahenbuhl, Washington correspondent for GloboNews TV.